Hey guys, welcome to Lingua Marina. Today, we're gonna learn English at the airport. I'm actually flying from New York back home to San Francisco, and I'm gonna teach you everything that is connected with flying. So hopefully that next time that you fly somewhere, you'll be able to use the words that you learned in this video. So listen and watch carefully. Let's start. So I just arrived at the airport and I booked a transfer with a transfer company, but you can also book a taxi. So transfer is something more formal and something you have to pre-book. A taxi is a car that you just catch on the street or use Uber app to get it. Of course, depending on the city, you will be able to use public transportation to get to the airport. Now, once you're here, you need to figure out which terminal you're in, and normally your ticket would have that information. Now, we're at Terminal 5, and my airline is JetBlue. This information is extremely important because once you have it, you know where to go. You can either carry your luggage yourself or you can rent a car. Depending on where you are, it's either free or not. In the US, it's not free, so you actually need to pay to rent a car. And I only have my carry-on with me. So carry-on or hand luggage is something that I'm gonna take on the airplane with me, so I don't really need a card. Let's go and check in for the flight. You can check in yourself using your terminal and then drop off your bags at the counter, or you can just go to the counter and they will do everything for you. But because I only have a carry-on and this is a domestic flight is within one country. If you're flying out of the country, it's called international. So because I'm on a domestic flight, I did online check-in and I have my boarding pass in my phone already. And in most of the countries, you won't need to print your boarding pass. You just show them your phone and you go. Okay, I just went through a thing called security check. This is where they screen your bags. This is where they check your ID. Again, because I'm traveling domestically, there were no customs. Customs is where you have to declare things. If you're carrying over, I don't know, $10,000 in cash, or you're bringing a Mona Lisa with you from Paris, like a real one, you have to declare that. If you're traveling internationally, again, with domestic flight, you don't need to do that. And then another thing that I've only seen it in the US, it's called TSA Pre. Basically what this means is that if you're a resident in the US, they screen you once before the flight. They give you this ID number, they check your criminal record. If everything is fine, they give you an ID number, which gives you an option to go through a separate line where everything is a lot faster, like the whole security check. Because you know how you normally, if you go through security check, they would ask you to take your laptop out, they would ask you to take your shoes off. Now, if you're a TSA Pre and traveling in the US or from the US, then you have a separate line, which is a lot faster. And I did it, I think 3 years ago, and it was free with my bank card, and it just saves a lot of time. Now, it's always a good idea to arrive early for your flight. If it's an international flight, I'd say at least 2.5 hours. If it's domestic, then well, an hour and a half. Just because every airport is so exciting. And once you go through the passport control, once you check in your bags, you have all the stores, you have plenty of things to do. I couldn't really film when I was going through security check, but something happened there. I was selected for a pat down. It happens randomly. You go through security and they tell you, you're selected for a random check, which means you need to allow additional 5 to 10 minutes or sometimes 20 for them to check you. So basically they pat you from head to feet to check whether you have any weapons on you or whatever. So for me, it took less than 5 minutes. I went through an additional screening and now I'm free to do whatever. I have an hour and a half before my flight departs, but the boarding starts 40 minutes prior to departure. So I have half an hour to walk around the airport to show you things. I'm actually gonna check out the business lounge and I'm gonna show you what's going on during this part of the flight. posted something quickly on Instagram. If you don't follow me there, oh, you totally should. It is called Lingua Marina. I post almost daily stories about my life in the US, and I also post short videos about learning English. So make sure to pause the video here, subscribe to my Instagram, and come back. This is called Departures and Arrivals Board. This is where you check when your flight departs and which gate you need to go to. Now it's super important that you actually check how long it's going to take you to get to the gate, because at some airports like Frankfurt Airport or London Airport, London Heathrow, it can take you 20 minutes to get to your gate. So it's super important to time that. Otherwise, if you're late for boarding, you can be denied boarding even if you're checked in, even if you passed everything. They can tell you, your flight is already closed. Go ahead and book another flight, which is kind of stressful. In some airports, if it's the last call for your flight, they would actually announce. And I've had this situation a couple of times when they were like, Miss Mogilko, this is the last call for your flight, and I would run like crazy. In the US, they don't normally do that. I guess it's just because there are too many people here. Like, it would be too stressful for everyone to listen to all the announcements all the time. So just make sure you're not late for your boarding. Oh, airport security. My daughter Emily loves airplanes, so I'm gonna get one for her so she could play. I don't know, maybe this one. I'm at the gate getting ready to fly. Excited about the flight because I slept for 3 hours this night. And the flight is 6 hours, which means I will probably sleep for 4 hours. And I'm really looking forward to it. Now, buying things at the airport can be extremely expensive. This is a $15 plastic airplane, and water can cost $5, and food can be super expensive. So it is a good idea to buy everything before you actually fly, because at the airport stores are like a monopoly. They can set extremely high prices, and it is better to buy your food beforehand. By the way, if you're flying in the US or from the US to Canada and you're from a different country, make sure you have your own food, because they don't give you food if you're flying economy, even if it's a 6-hour flight. Like on this flight, I was lucky I got an upgrade. But on this flight, they're not gonna give food to people in the couch. And couch is another word for economy in the US, economy class. So always have your food. It happened to me, I think it was back in 2014 when I was flying in Canada from Toronto to Vancouver, which is like a 5-hour flight. And I didn't know, but like it was my first time flying within Canada, and I didn't know that they were not going to give us food, and the only option for me to eat was to buy something on the airplane. Again, overpriced, not healthy, not delicious. So since then, I always have my food with me. Now, when boarding the flight, there are actually several groups when you board, and if you're flying business or first, you're boarding in the first group. So basically, depending on the class, you're assigned to a different group. It is normally written on your boarding pass, so when you're ready to board, make sure you know which group you're in, because they're gonna announce group number 4 boarding, group number 5 boarding. And you can't really board before your group is announced, but you can board after that. Just make sure you don't miss that flight. I know in some countries they don't allow you to sit on the floor. I just loved it since the first time I traveled, sitting on the floor, because you can sit anywhere. Anyways, what I wanted to tell you is that if you're traveling internationally, you also have this opportunity to shop without taxes, which is called duty free. Basically, price can be 7 to 10% cheaper compared to local stores. And if you are looking to buy something more expensive, like maybe a perfume or maybe some makeup, it makes sense to buy it in a duty-free shop. So if you have time at the airport and you decided that you want to treat yourself, then do some duty-free shopping. Now, this this is a domestic terminal, so they don't have any duty-free shops here. But if it's an international terminal, any store there, except for like food stores, will be duty-free. I used to like shopping duty-free, but what I didn't like is that sometimes you buy things, they take them away from you, so you don't consume them in the country, and they give you everything when you land in your destination country, and it just adds more hassle. I think that happened to me in Canada when I was flying back to Russia. They took everything away, and then they gave me everything back when we landed in Russia. And I bought this face cream that I really wanted to use when we were flying. I don't know, there are so many surprises when you fly. I'm trying to talk about everything that could possibly happen, but you know, I've been flying a lot. Since I was 14, I've been flying alone. But every airport is different, every country is different. I would say American airports is where you get less service. Like in Dubai, for example, you can get a free stroller for your kids. In some German airports, you can get a free coffee, free water. You have very good restaurants. Here, it's much more like everything in the US. Like you have some fast food joints, you have some souvenir stores, but they don't provide you with free strollers, no free coffee or tea. You can find some water fountains to drink for free. Basically, that's it. I like the fact that in the US you can buy makeup like this from a vending machine. This is Kylie Cosmetics. I think this is super cool. Okay, this is the restroom, pretty standard. I'm not gonna film in here, but you have the idea. Okay, sometimes you cannot get a direct flight to your destination, which means, for example, if I wanted to fly from New York to San Francisco, I had an option to buy a non-stop flight, which I got. But sometimes you get two flights, and then you have your flight and your connecting flight. Normally it is cheaper, so some people prefer to do that, and they would fly from New York to, say, Texas, Austin, then change their flights and fly to San Francisco. Takes a bit longer, sometimes it's cheaper, and sometimes it just makes more sense. For example, when we fly from San Francisco to St. Petersburg, first of all, there are no direct flights, and second, I like to take a break between a transatlantic flight, and a transatlantic flight is basically what it is. You fly above the Atlantic Ocean. Normally lasts for me like 11 hours, so I like to take a break at the airport, stay at the hotel, and then take my connecting flight to my destination. A couple more terms that I want you to know. A long haul flight is normally a flight that's longer than 6 to 7 hours. And another term very popular in the US called a red-eye flight. Basically, I like how American English is created. Basically, a red-eye flight is when you have to wake up super early, maybe like even 2 a.m. in the night to get your flight. And when you arrive, because you didn't sleep well, your eyes are red. So this is called a red-eye flight. Now, Americans are obsessed with collecting miles, and I'm obsessed with collecting miles. You get some banks give you miles for using their credit cards, like Chase Bank or Brex. So you collect miles, and then you can redeem them for your flight. This means you can fly business class for like $60 and 150,000 miles. Which again, in my case, because I have a business and we have a lot of transactions, we have a lot of miles that I can redeem for business class flights. Now, one more thing. There is business class and sometimes there is first class. Now, first is supposed to be like extra luxury, but not in the US. Sometimes first class in the US just means wider seats and that's it. On the airplane, don't forget to fasten your seatbelt for takeoff and landing. Okay, I have arrived. I slept through the whole flight, which is perfect. Now when you arrive, if it's a domestic flight, you just go to baggage claim to get your suitcase, and then you go to taxis, and then you're out, and that's it. If you are flying international, you have another passport control when you arrive in the country. And something to remember about the United States, especially if you're coming to New York or Los Angeles, sometimes you can wait for 2 hours in line just to get through passport control. So just get ready. When I arrived for the first time, I was like, we missed our connecting flight and I was so tired and I didn't have water. Just make sure you have your water, you have maybe a book, you have something to eat, because the lines can be crazy here in the US. Thank you guys so much for watching this video up to the very end. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, the red button is down below. Hit subscribe and I'll see you very soon in my next videos. Bye bye.